Hello, my name is Stupidhumans, and this one I'm going to answer the age-old question. How many kills did Macaulay Culkin have in Home Alone 2? It all starts with a brick. For this clip, Macaulay is on top of a 3-story building, which I'm going to say is around 40 feet high. And Joe Pesci and non-Joe Pesci are about 10 feet away from the building. As a side note, the non-Joe Pesci wet bandit is around 41 feet away from Macaulay, and he makes this pass in the back of the end zone on a dime, right in his dome. You can't teach that. The time it takes for this brick to leave Macaulay's hands from the video to hit anti-Joe Pesci is around 3 seconds. From this, I can relatively easily calculate what the initial flown velocity of the brick is and what the final velocity of the brick is when it hits evil Joe Pesci in the face. First off, the easy calculation. In the direction parallel to the ground, it takes 3 seconds to travel 3 meters. And there are no forces in this direction, so I can say that this is an average velocity of 1 meter per second. In the direction downward, the brick has some initial velocity that we don't know, and a downward force due to gravity. For this case, I'm going to be ignoring drag due to air resistance. Maybe this is a mistake, but we can decide that at the end. So our equation of motion looks like this, because gravity is our only force. Integrating this equation over time, we find our equation for velocity, which looks like this, where v0 is initial velocity and g is the gravitational constant, which is 9.8. Again, you don't really need to understand what I'm doing here, but just stick with me. And from here, we can integrate this again over time to find our equation for the brick as a function of time, where x0 is the height of our building, v0 is the initial velocity that we don't know, and g again is the gravitational constant. And our ending position that we want to find, x, is 0 for this case. Plugging in all of these variables, we find that the initial velocity of our brick is 11.38 meters per second, or 25 miles per hour, which is pretty fast. This kid's got a heck of a cannon on his arm. Then, plugging this back into the previous equation for velocity, we can find that the velocity of impact is 40.2 meters per second, or 90 miles per hour. So, the real question. Is this enough to kill taller, skinnier Joe Pesci? From the video, it takes about 0.02 seconds to go from 40 meters per second to 0 meters per second on non-Joe Pesci's head. This would be an acceleration of around 2,000 meters per second squared. And with a mass of 2 kilograms, that would be 4,000 newtons of force on Wish-brand Joe Pesci's dome ski. Doing some cursory investigations, it takes around 1,100 pounds of force to crush a human skull. This equates to around 4,900 newtons of force. FBI, please don't look at my search history. Using this as a comparison, I feel pretty safe to say this man is dead, this man is dead, this man is dead, and this man is still dead. Next up is the paint can scene, where both Joe and not Joe get beamed by some sort of cylinder. Not really sure what this is. For this one, I'm going to use conservation of energy to calculate how fast they are going when they hit the ground at the end of this clip. So let's say Macaulay is about 2 meters above our boys. He doesn't seem to give the cylinder any initial velocity, so at this point, the cylinder has just gravitational potential energy. The cylinder then swings down, clocks our 2 anti-heroes, and they fall a good 15 feet, smash into the concrete ground. So, how fast are they going when they hit the ground? Well, first off, I'm not 100% sure what the cylinder is made out of, but I'm going to say plastic. It looks like some sort of rock, but you will see why I say it's something lighter than that, because it would be very, very heavy if this was actually rock. The cylinder itself looks like it has a length around Macaulay's wingspan, who is 12 at the time. The diameter is about the size of the boys' faces when it hits them, which is around 0.2 meters. This means the cylinder has a volume of 0.048 meters cubed, and the density of plastic is 940 kilograms per meters cubed, meaning this weighs 45 kilograms, which is around 100 pounds, which, again, was why I said it's probably not rock, and is pretty heavy for a small boy to lift. But Macaulay, as we've seen previously, is very strong, so I wouldn't put it past him. Anyway, the gravitational potential energy of this object before it is thrown is therefore 882 joules. Because of conservation of energy, this energy is converted into kinetic energy, which is then directly transferred into our boys. There's going to be some dissipation here, but I'm not really considering that. I'm just going to say it was transferred directly into our boys. They fall then an extra 15 feet and hit the concrete below. In that fall, they gain an additional 4,000 joules of energy due to their own gravitational potential energy. This energy is then converted into kinetic energy when they hit the ground. Doing the calculation for this, we can find that they're falling at a speed of around 25 miles per hour. I don't think this would kill the boys, but would most likely leave them with some broken bones at least. Next up, we have non-Joe Pesci getting electrocuted. Zooming in on this shot, it looks like the AC/DC arc welder is on the 40 amp setting. I know this because I found a better image of the same machine right here, and it looks like the knob is all the way to the left, which corresponds to 40 amps. Not really sure how this machine works, so take this with a grain of salt, but online I found that 0.1 amps is enough to kill a person, so this is way more than enough to kill Timu Joe Pesci. And finally, we have the clip that made me want to make this video in the first place. Joe Pesci getting set on fire and then exploded. First off, Joe Pesci's hat catches on fire. I'm guessing this beanie is made of cotton, which thankfully for him doesn't melt and drip like a synthetic material would. Cotton, however, does burn very quickly, hence the large fire that consumes most of Mr. Pesci's head. I don't think this would kill Mr. Pesci, but in real life he actually did sustain serious burns on top of his head due to this stunt. Also, on a side note, in an interview in Variety, Mr. Pesci says, and I quote, "I intentionally limited my interactions with him," referring to Macaulay, "to preserve the dynamic between his character Kevin and my character Harry. I did not want it to come across on screen that we were in any way friendly. I wanted to maintain the integrity of our adversarial relationship. I wanted to bring this up to point out that Joe Pesci is a professional, even when the movie is Home Alone 2. And I respect that." Joe Pesci then realizes his head is on fire when he looks in the mirror, and then does a handstand over the toilet and dunks his head into some sort of liquid. The liquid then explodes, igniting Mr. Pesci further. I'm going to assume this liquid is gasoline. The average toilet holds around 1.3 gallons of water, and the internet says that 1 gallon of gasoline has the explosive power of 14 sticks of dynamite. Joe Pesci is in heaven because this has killed him. This leads to our final death count of 5 for tall Joe Pesci and 1 for actual Joe Pesci. Thank you and goodbye.